So, hello everyone. I am Erin from Morehouse Farm. So pleased to have Vanessa Black of VanessaKnits here with us today. Wanted to share with you an interview with a designer because Vanessa's been working with us at Morehouse Farm for, we decided, 2 years now, right? After meeting at Rhinebeck.
Yeah.
After meeting on Instagram. So make sure you follow her on Instagram, VanessaKnits, if you aren't already, so that you can hear about the latest designs as they come up, because there's a lot that goes into this process. And we get so many compliments from our knitters on Vanessa's patterns because they are so well written, so easy to follow, and include just about everything you could ever want to have in a pattern, right down to not only written but charted patterns that then also come with a checklist so that and make sure you're at the right place in your cable chart or in your sleeve decreases, you name it. So welcome, Vanessa. So good to see you.
Good to see you too.
So where do you get your design ideas from?
Oh, everywhere and everywhere. Every different spot of my day. It depends. Like the Calvin sweater was Calvin telling me exactly what he wanted. He wanted a striped sweater in green and white. And so I sketched out a couple of ideas and this is what I came back with. And I was, someone externally directing the design process, but that's not usually how it happens. Usually I might see something in nature or see a color combo somewhere and go, oh, that would make a pretty design. And like the one that I think about a lot is the Miriam cowl. This was a simple lace cowl, but I thought it was so elegant. And as I was thinking about the design and thinking about what I wanted to name it, I named it after this woman in our life, a family friend that was so elegant, but also no nonsense. And so I wanted this to kind of represent her. And so that's how this design came out. And other times it's just a cable, like, there's so many different variations of cables. But like when I did the Morehouse hat, that was just something that I thought was beautiful. It was like 3-pronged almost, and it was easy to knit, but had a beauty to it that was making it look more complex. So it depends. Sometimes I see things, sometimes I just sketch things out. And I was talking to Erin before about this. I have a million of these blank notebooks in like every project bag in my kitchen and my bedroom, everywhere. And so if I think of an idea, I just kind of jot it down. So like some are in color, they're really, pointedly organized. Like I have a very clear vision. Actually, this was another one that I knit for Amano yarns. I had idea for, a chevron, and it actually didn't even turn out like this. It was completely different. Once I started knitting it, I added in a fade because I thought it would look good. So sometimes I start sketching, and most of the time it ends up like this. I have an idea and then it just ends up in a scribble. So part of it is casting on, seeing it work, if it works, and writing down what I'm doing as I'm going along. And then I might decide, no, it's not what I want, rip it out and start again and start sketching again. And a lot of it is just math. So you might have an idea of what you want to do, but then to make it fit into a raglan or a yoke design, it's a whole different set of problems. So like this was Calvin. This was the sleeve increase.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so it's a lot of math. And I think, if you're knitting a pattern, you might have an understanding of it, but if you've not done the math to design something, you have no idea how much goes into it. And that's why it takes me so long. I'm very slow, but I'm very particular. I mean, I don't want errors in my patterns. I haven't had to do an errata yet, so I'm gonna hope that sticks. But it's a lot of work.
So many sizes. I mean, just thinking about the math for the Calvin sweater.
Yeah.
Right. You have the 6-month size as the smallest one in the child version.
Yeah.
You've gone up to a 12, and then the soon-to-be released adult one has how many sizes?
So now we're going to do the Calvin in the adult, which it's not graded the same way. So I worked with the tech editor. That's also kind of like my right hand. The design might be the same, but the math is completely different because children are basically kind of shorter and stockier than most adults. So their rate of increase is the same from the neck on down, but adults and women who have breasts and men who don't, like you have to consider all that stuff when you're designing. So our rate of increase is different in the sleeves than in the front and back panels. So for the adult Calvin, it's not just a matter of blowing out the chart to make it bigger. It was a lot of work to figure out what that rate of increase would look like. And so this is the women's extra small, which will be for me. And it's going to be sized from women's extra small to 5X and men's extra small to 4X. So basically everyone in the family, between the kids and the adult version, will be able to have their own Calvin. It's got from 32 inches to 64 and a bit, I think, for the adult. So we've got all the sizes covered. And if you need help adjusting for bigger or smaller, we can always figure out the math on that. But we wanted to be as inclusive as we could from the get-go. And so that is why it takes a little longer. But, you know, I think it's important to put a lot of thought into the draft first, have a tech editor look at it, double check your math, grade certain things differently because they're the experts. I mean, they study how to do this well. And then also to have test knitters. So I always have test knitters do my designs, knit them, so that somebody that's basically never seen the pattern, I want to make sure they can read it, understand it, and replicate the sweater or whatever shawl or hat, and it should come out the same. Like the recipe should work no matter who's knitting it. So that's why it takes a little longer, but I'm not one to rush patterns out because it has my name on it. It has Erin's name on it. Like we wanted to make sure it's right. So it might take a little longer, but it's well worth it, I think.
Absolutely. The number of knitters that thank us for having such well-written patterns, and we just say, that's all Vanessa putting all that time and extra effort into it. And how many times did you say you went back and forth checking the math on the adult Calvin?
I mean, it's been a couple months that my tech editor by the end, I think I looked at the email trail. It was like, we're in the 50 responses back and forth. And she, at some point she was like, I think you're overthinking it. And then I went back and I did some more math even after that. But now I think I'm okay with it because and it's hard because if you think about it, even as well-meaning as I am to try to get a pattern that works for everybody, the human body is so different. Like Erin and I can attest to that. Like even just the Morehouse hat, I have a very tiny head, very. Erin has a larger noggin, but with cables, they stretch. So we figured out a way that one size will really work for most head circumferences.
Do you have your hat there so they can
do.
see? Vanessa knit both of these, so we can't even say it's different gauges from different knitters, but what's your head circumference?
Tiny. I mean, my mom calls me mosquito head. So like, I don't know.
Mom.
20 something.
Mine is giant. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 22, 23 inches.
It's closer to 20. I mean, it's tiny. And so we're wearing the same hat, but because again, cables stretch. So mine's just a bit slouchier. Hers is more fitted, but it's definitely got room and it's comfortable. And that is for the yarn too, because the yarn is so soft that even if it was tighter, it would be comfortable. But yeah, I mean, one size does fit most. For this is size for adult women. I think I had a couple people say I want to knit it for a man. So we said, let's play with gauge a little bit. We can add rows in between, like there's certain spots where you can add an extra row. I mean, there's things you can do. So with a sweater, I think this was my first raglan design and I got so hung up on, well, what about the person that has shorter arms like me, or Erin's got longer arms? And I'm like, you know what? At some point you can't make one pattern work for all, but you can educate the knitter on how to adjust the pattern for their own purposes. So when we do the knit alongs in the Facebook group, that's the excellent way to say, okay, I have, my mom says, again, T-Rex arms, very, very short arms. So for me, even in the pattern for an extra small, I took out one row in between each sleeve decrease because I needed to, for my arms are very short. It wouldn't fit the normal extra small. As evidence when I go shopping at the store, I have to fold all my sleeves and that's just the way it is. But for Erin, she can add a row in between each decrease and it works. So it's like the formula for the average size, and then we can help you make it more custom for your own body. And that's how everything kind of meets.
And I love how you have this spirit of sharing knowledge, because all of those things that you just described are things that we want to add to our knitting toolbox, which is what we try to do each month in the Facebook group, the Morehouse Merino Flock. Yeah. And we have knit alongs. So Vanessa has been a guest host. Oh golly, I don't know how many times now. We've done what, 7 projects, I think. So looking forward to the next one's the Calvin sweater. Working on this for our Rhinebeck sweater 20, and so many new techniques that gets introduced. Yet you have a video and an instruction on how to do that, so you can comfortably, as a knitter, say, "All right, I need to add a few inches to my sleeves. How do I do that? And then I'm ready to do that next time." Exactly. So how do you decide what needs a video and what doesn't?
I mean,
there's only so much room in your pattern.
Yeah, well, that's, as you know, my patterns are quite long, which isn't good for printing, but it's good for, like, I don't get very many questions at all on my patterns. And I know some designers are like constantly with, pattern support. I don't have time for that. I mean, at this point, in 2 weeks, I'm going to be homeschooling my son because schools are not going to be open 5 days a week. So, I mean, I don't have time.
Right the first time.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it makes sense. Instead of doing hand holding on an individual basis, why not put all that stuff in the pattern so people can take 5 minutes to read it from start to finish and they know exactly what they need to do. They know some tips and tricks that I found useful. So, if you haven't knit one of my patterns, you might be shocked that the pattern doesn't actually start until page 3 or 4. And that's because in the pattern notes, it's not like knit loosely at the neckline. I mean, it's really like you need to think about when you're doing stripes, here's what you need to think about to make it seamless. If you're casting on under the arm, I suggest using this type of cast on and this is why. And oh, hey, if you haven't done it, click here. It's a 2-minute video tutorial on YouTube to show you. So all the things that me as a knitter, because I knit for many, many years before I started designing and I bought plenty of patterns. I mean, my Ravelry queue is like 200 plus patterns. I've knit a lot of other people's patterns and I know as a knitter, as a consumer of knitwear patterns, what I like to see and what I don't. And so when I'm putting my name on something, I want it to be not only as perfect as it can be. And look, we're all humans. There could be an error at some point and we can fix that. But I want as many eyes on it and as many people reviewing it before it gets out for public consumption that anyone can pick it up and go, oh, that's a good point. Oh, I learned something new. Or, I don't have any questions. I can just go through it. And a lot of it is, like even with this sweater, with the raglan increases for the adults, it's so complicated because you have to increase at different rates for the front and back panel versus the sleeves. So that might mean on one row, you're increasing 8 times, and another row, you're increasing 4 times, and another row, you're not doing any increases. And if I didn't put the chart, which I did in the pattern at the back end, someone that read that would have to essentially write it for themselves. And I feel if you're buying a knitting pattern, because there's plenty of free patterns. I mean, you can go on Pinterest, you can go on Ravelry. There's plenty of free patterns on blogs, but sometimes you have to do a little work. And if you're paying for a pattern, I will do the work for you. So you'll have, the last page of each pattern usually has like a checkoff chart. Some don't need it, but for something like this, you do. Print it off. If you're going to knit the pattern more than once, I actually recommend laminating it so then you can dry erase.
Great idea.
Yeah, so sometimes if there's patterns I knit more than once, I laminate all the sheets because they always say circle the size that you're working on so you don't lose track. Get a dry erase marker, do that, and then you can check off on the last page what row you're on the chart or in the sleeve decrease section, all that stuff, and it's all there and it's easy. I want it to be easy. Like I don't want anyone to knit my pattern and be frustrated because that doesn't make me feel good. So far people have said it's easy. They want something that you can create a garment or a shawl or whatever it is and feel accomplished and not frustrated because knitting is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be relaxing. And even if it has something complicated like garter, lace or cables, it could still be easy if it's presented in an easy way. So that's always been my aim when I design and write.
Yeah, and your patterns are like, I don't know, my mom's favorite recipes. They're comforting to us and we knit them all the time, right? We make that food all the time because that was mom's specialty. So it's not a put it down and never see it again, but yeah, you've got Miriam there.
How many have been knit? I mean, if you go in the Facebook group, what's funny is this and the Morehouse hat have been knit multiple times. And it's like one of those things where you think cables are intimidating or lace is intimidating and people tackle it and they go, oh my gosh, I need to make another. And you'll see the same knitter make it in 3-4 different colors, this and this in particular. These are both one skein projects. They're perfect for gift knitting. I mean, this is like, every teacher at Calvin's last year got one of these.
Oh,
and so they loved it. And it's something that is going to fit everybody. So this was one that got knit multiple times in different colors. And then this, one skein of gator yarn at $14. I mean, you can't beat that. And if you give this to someone that doesn't knit, they're going to be like, wait a minute, you knit this? It looks so complicated. And it's a quick project, if you can believe it. And it's super soft. And it's one of those things that you can just knit and have ready to gift, for whatever holiday. And, I just like when I see people knit my things more than once. It makes it like, all right, it's enjoyable. It's fun.
And it was so much fun to watch you run around at Rhinebeck or at Vogue Knitting Live because we would see people come by who had knit a Vanessa pattern and they were proudly wearing it. It was fantastic.
So and it's fun for me to see too. Yeah.
So you've been designing for how long now? 4 years, 3 years, 4 years. Oh, wow. I feel like you've done so much in just a short time.
Well, and it would be more if I was a little faster, but I have so many ideas, but the execution of it, because I am so slow and I want to make sure it's all how it should be, that's what slows me down. I have ideas coming out my ears, but the time to actually knit them is the struggle. So
it's not like you're not doing anything else either, right? So
you're
a mom,
I the calendar.
You're now a homeschool instructor.
Oh my gosh, don't remind me. I have 2 weeks left. I'm picking up his laptop at school tomorrow, and we'll see how that works out. But yeah, I think I surround myself with beautiful yarn, and that always gives me inspiration. It's the time to figure out when to knit it, which happens to be at night. A lot of times it's at night for me when Calvin goes to bed and Netflix is on, and I can start doodling and doing a little swatch. Like all my shawls start out with a little triangle, just a little bit. And sometimes the design works, but the gauge isn't right, and it can feel like it's not loose enough or it's too loose. And so I frog it and start over with another needle, and we'll see if that's right. And so it's a lot of frogging, but I think it's worth it to get it right.
So you knit as you go and then take notes.
Yeah, so that's how typically, like, I'll have an idea. This was let me see, hold on.
What was that multicolored block? That looks really cool.
Well, it was an idea where we ended up doing like this one instead. I might still
go
back
that was you just released that earlier this year, didn't you?
Yeah, that was the summer. It was what was that even called? Oh my gosh, I'm having a
but yeah, the spot there. It was gorgeous though. It's in a like a light blue and yellow and pinky kind of fade.
This is a cotton blend. It's cotton and linen. And this was
there it is.
Yeah, they sent me 6 colors that on its own, I was like, what am I going to do with this? And I'm like, you know what? First I had this idea that we would do like a solid background and then accents with like mini skeins. But then when I saw the size and the yardage, there were 383 yards each.
Oh my goodness.
And what I did was I did one of solid, and then I did marled into the next color, and we kind of continued. So it all kind of blended. And you use up all 6 colors, and it's massive. It's just a beautiful shawl that you can layer. Oh, not on your head. Layer, loosely over the shoulders, or even, at night.
Wow. I feel like if you got double that, you could have a blanket out of it.
Seriously. I mean, it is big. It is big. But I like that it has so many different colors that you would think won't go. But when you marl them, it makes it really fun.
What a great idea.
Yeah.
And that is you putting the yarns together, right? That is not a special characteristic of the yarn.
I mean, I had 6 yarns. They just sent me 6 random colors from the collection. And initially I'm like, I could break it down into 2 projects maybe. I'm like, you know what? No, I want to go big. And because a lot of my projects, sometimes I don't wear the garments because I'm so petite, but for normal size, like 5'5" and up, it's a beautiful shawl. And even, if you want to gift it for somebody, that's a special thing. That you can easily make into a blanket. Just, triple the width and add more yardage. So that, it started out one way, it ended up another way. And then another idea was doing like a log cabin with different colors. That would be fun. Like just simple triangles to shawls. And a lot of it, this was like, when we were doing the other hat, weighing to see if we had enough for 2.
Oh, right. Back and forth.
Colors. And these, what was this one called? The quick one.
The quick one, yeah. And how many times you said, I like this design. I like this chart better. I'm going to change it again because I just kept liking different patterns.
We like the double brim because it's like, much warmer because you get double the width right around the ears, and then you've got some simple color work. And this is the 2-strand, right?
I think that was the 3-strand.
3-strand.
So the worsted, right?
It's a little bit slouchy, but I like that it covers the ears and it's super warm. And this one ended up coming in 3 sizes because we wanted to make, again, you could make it for probably 7-8 years old up until adult male, and it should fit everybody. So it depends on the design. Sometimes you need more. Sometimes like a cable knit stretches and you can just do one size. Everything kind of, we play with it and see what works best.
And Calvin was wearing the smallest one in there, right?
He was, yeah. He was wearing I made him one in black and white. I think I had extra. We were weighing how much we had before we started, how much we ended, and then seeing if you can get 2 hats. What sizes could you make with two
Mhm.
colors? Maybe you could do a small and a medium. So that was a fun pattern to do too. He likes that one. Yeah.
And there's a great little picture of him I think he was doing his homework wearing it. Like, just
Yeah.
Mom, I want to wear this. So I'm gonna, and okay, see ya. I'm going off to
Yeah.
do what I have to do.
Exactly. I think from March until June, he was perpetually in pajamas and something knit, and just chilling out at home while he did his work.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
I know. We have a year more of that.
So how do you decide what yarn to use for a project? For instance, you just mentioned the piece you just showed us was cotton, the hat was wool, the cowl you said was wool. How do you match those two things together?
Lots of different things. So it depends. If it's like, this is actually a good example. So the gator yarn, because it has the grip, is perfect for something with lace, because if you're trying to make a design that has like stands up on its own and doesn't flop, you don't want to have something with like a silk blend or an alpaca blend, because it's, although it is soft and silky, it doesn't hold the shape. So this design knit in an alpaca silk blend would just literally fall flat and it won't hold the shape. So you need a wool that has more grip for something like this. Same thing with like, anything with eyelets, you need a little bit more wool grip to keep the shape. For something like a shawl, you do want to have that drape. So it's okay for me to blend. This was I think it was 70% cotton, 20% merino, 10% linen. So it has really good drape as well, and it's washable. I mean, you could just throw that in the wash and lay it out and call that blocking. For sweaters, I like to, again, if it's going to have some kind of texture to it, I like the pure wool. I just kind of play around with it. It depends. Like some things like this, you like the stitch definition. So the bulky is perfect, and you can really see the stitch definition, and it has a lot of grip. So, it kind of depends. I play with it. Sometimes I'll cast on a project with a certain yarn and like it, but know it's not right, and save that yarn for a different project and keep the same design, but play around with others. So even like a applied versus not applied, the look of it is completely different. And so I might swatch with both and see which one works. Trial and error.
Wow. Your patience is amazing to try all these different things to figure out, how can I make this work? And I would love for more people to know and have that skill, and just to tell them so that they can appreciate how much time and effort you put into making all of these patterns.
Like the shawl that you're wearing, that one, I gave it a really good stretch, because when I swatched it, I'm like, you know what, for that cable to open up, you really got to wet block it and you've got to stretch it, because not only do you have the cable in the middle, you have it on the applied border. So if you don't stretch it, that cable's not going to bloom. So, educating the knitter on what they need to do to replicate it, I think is just as important, because a lot of times people will knit something, take it off the needles and go, well, mine doesn't look like yours. I got a lot of that with this, like when I initially published it, and I would say, did you wet block it? Oh, no. Well, soak it and pin it and then let me know. Oh my gosh, that's exactly what I mean, you do have to take it. It's like the final step. I don't think any project is complete until it's blocked. And I prefer wet blocking, because I'll use a steam block in a pinch. If I'm like against the deadline and I need to get it done, I might just do a really heavy steam block, pin it, and hope it dries in a couple hours. But I prefer a good wet block. It really, like, especially for this yarn, the gator, it bloomed beautifully, and it got so much softer. Even with I use Eucalyptus blocking soap, a teaspoon of that. You don't even have to rinse it out. I do, because I don't like the idea of having the soap on my skin, but you're technically allowed to just soak it and then take it out just like that. But that really makes a world of difference to texture. And even like for this, I wet blocked it and I pinned it. I had the blocking pins. They were like combs. I put them along the edges so that when it dried, you really could see the peaks. Because if you don't block it, it's going to curl.
And look how flat it lays, even with the miter in the center there.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a fun one. I mean, this you could do with a 2-ply. Your 2-ply would be perfect, and then you don't have to, well, actually, I would say lace because of the marling, because you need to hold it double to get the marled. This in a lace would be super lightweight and fun.
My project is growing by the minute.
This was a fun one. I brought it. We went down to the beach for a week last month, and I brought it thinking, I'll get some beautiful shots by the ocean, and it was so hot. It was like, it didn't even leave the house. We left it hanging in the closet. It was so hot. I couldn't do it. But
have to go back.
yes, I'll have to go back in the fall. Yep.
Excellent. So what are you thinking about next?
No, so I got to finish this sweater. I've got half a sleeve left. As soon as Calvin is done, we'll do that knit along. I briefly showed this before, but this is going to be the lapgan. So Erin, you've given me this one ball to kind of play around with. And I looked at the calendar and I saw October was right around the corner, which I don't even know how that happened. But the pink just reminded me initially, I'm like, ooh, Breast Cancer Awareness Month is coming up. And my mom had breast cancer, her sister had breast cancer, their aunt and another cousin of mine. So I'm like, you know what, maybe we should do a lapgan, like a small portable blanket that people that are going through treatments, either radiation or really chemo, because I know they keep those rooms so cold and you're there for hours and it's sometimes not comfortable and you feel like you want a little bit of comfort. So I thought we could do something along the lines of a small 9x9 square blanket. So I did this. This only used half of one ball. So I said, let me just get the center square ready and then I can play around as soon as I finish the sweater with the other 8. And we'll do a simple 9 blocks, seam it up. And I thought this would be the perfect thing to give someone, a friend or a family member, that if they're going through treatments and have to do chemo, it's just a really nice way to show them that you're thinking about them, that you love them. It's like a little hug while they're going through their treatments. And, you know, this is the pink I thought for breast cancer awareness, but you have so many colors that you could really personalize it to whatever you would need for gifting. So that'll be in October. And then I'm dying to start, but I need to finish this in chronological order, but I have 6 skeins, I think, of your lace weight in 2 different colors, and they're neutrals. And I have this idea in my head for, I already have like a name, the 4 seasons, because I want to design something very lightweight, but that can be worn all 4 seasons of the year in different ways. So I picture it being very big and very airy, but wearing it that it can provide warmth in the winter and be very light and airy in the summer and kind of everything in between. So it's going to involve tassels because I'm dying to put little tiny tassels on something. So I think that'll be the project that we do it. So.
Well, I can't wait to see this, and your style sense is so helpful because I'm always unsure of how do I wear a shawl appropriately.
However you want. There's no wrong way. Because even like triangle shawls, I have so many triangle shawls, and I will wear them with the V in the front and then the tails in the front for the winter because it really acts like almost like a cowl and a scarf and a shawl all in one, and throw my coat on top, or even just a vest because it's so warm. And then on other times I might just put it in the back and put the arms in the front draping. It depends. There's no wrong way. That's what if you look at the runways in New York, there is no wrong way. I mean, there's crazy fashion everywhere.
Very true. Well, speaking of runways, I want you all to know that her first shot at the New York State competition, Make It With Wool, Vanessa was 2nd place reserve champion in the adult class at Rhinebeck. And we are so proud of her. Can't wait to see what she's going to come up with for the next competition. I'm going to see her on the national stage. So we're looking forward to knitting along comfortably with everything that you come up with next, and want to see you get more recognition for these wonderful designs. And
well, I'm glad we
feel so lucky that we met and get to work together.
I feel lucky.
You.
I mean, the group on Facebook is amazing, and every time we do a knit along, just the support that everyone provides each other is just so nice. I mean, especially Facebook right now in the world can be a not so nice place, but that group is like a solace. And I think anyone that's watching this, if you're not already in the Morehouse flock group, it's amazing. You can do any knit along, stop in, pop out. There's no deadlines. It's very easy. And there's always people showing their work and asking questions, and everyone willing to jump in and help. So it's been great.
Yeah, because we have 3 simple rules. Number 1, be good to each other and yourselves. Number 2, you can't say can't unless you say the word yet after it, because of all these reasons you heard Vanessa say that she includes in her patterns, the different ways to approach something and different techniques that will help walk you through. And number 3, I think the most important one, behind is just something that you sit on.
Very true. It's very true. And I love seeing everyone share their projects. And I saw in one of your recent emails, the blast emails, pictures of completed projects from the flock. And I'm like, oh, that's so special. It's like that little bit of recognition. If you open that email and you saw your project, you're like, oh, that's really cool. I like that. I really like that.
Well, good. Keep those pictures coming, everybody, so that we can keep including more examples in future newsletters.
Yep.
And if you're not a subscriber yet, make sure you're on morehousefarm.com/news. And don't forget to click the yes confirm. We want to make sure it's you and not a bot signing up for the newsletter. Make sure you follow Vanessa on Instagram, VanessaKnits, and then you have a newsletter as well, right? We can sign up at VanessaKnits.com. Yep. And I look so forward to our next knit along. It'll kick off September 8th, thereabouts, when you release the Calvin sweater for adults, so that we can all be in our holiday best in a group shot.
I don't know if I'm going to have time to knit one for Eric, but I already, like, when I started designing the adult one, I'm like, this is going to be a great sweater for holiday pictures. So hopefully we'll see some family shots.
We'll look forward to it. And if you're a subscriber who's going to knit along with us in the Calvin sweaters, stay tuned for a special event that Vanessa and I are cooking up. And of course, things change by the moment in COVID land, but we want to make sure that we still get to have fun and stay connected. So make sure you're on the list so you get your special invitation.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us again, Vanessa. Always a pleasure. And I'll look forward to comparing knits as we get into our Calvin sweaters.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.